Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky, and we're back for another exciting week of G.I. Joe, Joe on Joe Illustrated. We are covering issue 87 of A Real American Hero. That is the fabulous Destro with his Iron Grenadiers behind him, flying on the cover at you. Some great Destro on Cobra action, or Cobra on Destro action, whichever you prefer. I'm not here to kink shame. And we're going to have a lot of fun with it today. We're also going to get into a little bit of some really cool insight that came to us via a friend of the show, Dave Amiot. And yeah, we're going to talk about that exciting Snake Eyes trailer. We got Fast 9 out in the theaters. We're back in the theaters. We're going back out in the world. It's a good time to be a fan of exciting stuff, guys. It really, really is. So first off, we're going to start with a little data roundup from last week's episode. If you remember, we did issue 86. And it was brought to my attention through eagle-eyed listener, Dave Amiot, who absolutely put this together. And shame on me, I'm reading this book right now, and I didn't put this together. On Postbox The Pit, the very first letter we talked about was from Pablo Hidalgo out of Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the same Pablo Hidalgo who is a high-up muckety-muck over in the Star Wars world, like overseeing, like he oversaw StarWars.com for a while, and he's doing, he's involved in a bunch of the story stuff, and specifically, he's the author of the G.I. Joe versus Cobra, The Essential Guide. We're assuming it's the same Pablo Hidalgo. It's from Canada, same name. You know, like there's a few assumptions there, but I agree with Dave's assumption of, I think that's the same dude. And he actually it may have been confirmed somewhere that Pablo may have said, yeah, that was me writing it. So isn't that cool? Now I'm reading this. It's G.I. Joe versus Cobra, The Essential Guide. I talked about it briefly on another show, but it was in the other room, so I didn't really have anything with me to talk about. This came out in 2008, 2009. Let's see the exact publication here. Came out in 2009. And for my money, this is the best kind of official handbook style book. And that's what this is. So if you guys love the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, where they, the character guide reference books they do for He-Man. I know a lot of fans there have been a lot of fan stuff done for him for G.I. Joe and everything. And G.I. Joe itself did Order of Battle, and Devil's Due published a couple issues, if I recall. So if you guys like that style of character dossier reference stuff, which I certainly do, this is one of the best. And the reason why is it takes in all the history and kind of merges everything and makes it work. So I talked about this before, where it uses some stories from Sunbow, it uses some stuff from the Real American Hero comics, and then it also incorporates the Devil's Due stuff. Now at the time, Devil's Due, if I'm remembering this right, wasn't completely like written out of continuity or anything yet, so it was still considered continuity. But they find a way to like seamlessly integrate a lot of the weirder stuff about G.I. Joe and some of the weird stuff about the action figures, like specifically like with Flint, although I guess this would have been in the comics too, but they talk about, like Flint was put on the, was it the Echo Squad or the small squadrons that they put on the figures that weren't necessarily a part of their, adventures in the comic books. Well, he mentions them in here. He says stuff like, later in his career, Flint was put on the Echo Warriors, etc., and so on, things like that. And it works really, really well. Pablo did a fabulous job of merging all this stuff, and it's a really good read. I'm enjoying the heck out of this. I just picked this up on eBay, and I paid about $25 for it, and so that seems about the right price. It is cover price. But it's a really good book. It's like magazine size, it's a little oversized soft cover, and they've got a lot of data on the toys and stuff. And at the end, they sum up some of the cartoons, like specifically the miniseries and stuff. And then there's a small story in the back. This is right before IDW is about to kickstart their G.I. Joe universe. So that's kind of where it took place in continuity with everything. But it's really good. I'm enjoying it, and I think it's absolutely brilliant that Pablo was in last week's file cards or Postbox the Pit, and he wrote this book. So really great catch, Dave. It's good. So I recommend going out, seeking this out. The G.I. Joe versus Cobra, The Essential Guide. It's got really great animation too on it. I think that's by John Van Fleet and Ashley Wood. They did some really nice stuff in this book. So I'm enjoying that, and I'm enjoying that connection too. That means we got a big G.I. Joe fan over in charge of some stuff at Star Wars. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means how great would a Star Wars G.I. Joe crossover be? Like, what would that be? Like, it would have to be some kind of connection with like the Force and the Arashikages, and like what would you want a Star Wars G.I. I mean, that's a tough. We'd have to. Oh, easy. You do Worlds Without End. You use the matter transmitter, and you Worlds Without End it, and you have some G.I. Joe guys show up. That's what you do. I don't want to do your Lightning with the Ninja stuff. You do World Without End. They transmit, and you get people like Shipwreck, Clutch, Bazooka, and Alpine. We'll throw in Covergirl, and they transport, and they're in Mos Eisley, and they get into some hijinks in Mos Eisley. That's what happens. And then you throw in a couple Cobras. You get some Dreadnoks, because then the Dreadnoks can disguise themselves as stormtroopers, and then they're constantly hitting their heads on things, which then retroactively makes all the stormtroopers that hit their heads on stuff like makes them Dreadnoks. You know what I mean? Like do some retcon continuity in the movie and stuff. Yeah. Okay. All right. Listen, we just wrote it. Don't steal my idea, Marvel, or do steal it. I'd love to see that. So, listeners, as long as you're tweeting out to Marvel that we need to see a G.I. Joe Star Wars crossover written by me ASAP, I also want you to go to Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and find me at Joe on Joe Pod. And you can also send me an email to joeonjoepod@gmail.com and be like, hey, that was my story idea for G.I. Joe versus Star Wars. Hold on one second. Mary Jane. That clinking you heard was my dog, Mary Jane Watson, who always seems to wait until I start recording till she decides she needs to clank her food bowl around. So taken care of. But yes, go on the internet, guys. Say hi. Say hi. Say bye. Give me a rating and review on your whatever your podcatcher you're on. I appreciate it. The show always needs some help. Always needs some signal boosting. And while you're on the internet, I need you to go to at Movies in a Meal. They're the Twitter. It's a podcast. That's their Twitter handle. And you need to listen to them. It's one of the best movie podcasts out there. Give those guys a listen. It's like hanging out with a bunch of good friends. So let's give it a hear. Listeners, I know what you need in your life. You need more podcasts. And you also love movies. So why not do a podcast that's about not one movie. It's about not two movies. It's about 3 movies and a meal. I'm talking the Movies and a Meal podcast. This show is great. It's brought to you by Keith, Brad, and Ben, and each week they bring a new movie to the table, which they all discuss as a group. And it's not, your highfalutin movies. It's What We Do in the Shadows, The Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Out of Sight. It's Bad Education, Ghost Rider, and A View to a Kill. It's X-Men Last Stand, Queen Sugar, The Mandalorian, and Major League 2. They are a lot of fun to listen to. You guys know Ben. It's our friend Ben Pensarga. He was a guest on Joe and Joe. In fact, Ben was the very first remote guest that I ever had on this podcast, so he's always got a special place in my heart. I'm really digging this. I just started listening to it last week. It is a lot of fun. They bring a guest in. The guest, I listened to their Heathers episode. They were joined by Kelly, and she went in depth on her favorite movie, which was Heathers, and it made me want to go watch Heathers to watch with them. I really dig it. So guys, find them out there at Movies and a Meal, Twitter, Instagram. Their website is moviesandameal.podbean.com. They put out 1 episode a week. Give them a listen, guys. Support them. Let them know Joe on Joe sent you. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It is quite entertaining. And now back to the show. For real, they've been great sponsors of the show. Give them a listen. Tell them Joe on Joe sent you, and you'll be better. Your ears will be better for it. So before we dive into G.I. Joe number 87, let's do this.
You were saying?
To talk about comic books that were on the shelf the same month of G.I. Joe number 87, which would have been February of 1989. So we've got over at DC Comics, Action Comics Annual number 2, and also ties in with Adventures of Superman number 455. This is during Superman's sojourn in space, and these 2 issues are the first appearances of the Eradicator in Adventures, and in Action Comics, it's that I believe his name is Mentor. Is the old white-haired alien guy. They used him in one of those, man. There was some moment of time where people were thinking this was going to be a hot book. I don't think it ever did, but it's a really great series, and it's really where this iteration of Superman really first learns about his Kryptonian heritage. That's why it's important. The Eradicator originally was like it's a little small device, picture the size of a desk lamp, that is shaped like the rocket that Byrne designed for Superman coming home, and it was an AI, kind of like Brainiac, but not Brainiac. It's interesting that Superman, it took the animated series to tie Brainiac into Superman's origin, where Brainiac was either the AI that actually did destroy Krypton, or it was just an AI used on Krypton, and it was somehow involved in the destruction of Krypton, which is such a great non-forced way to tie a supervillain into someone's origin. Like it seems like such a natural fit, and it worked so well on the animated stuff. And they didn't do that here in the comics until after they had done it on the animated. But when you look at on 455, when you look at the device that Superman's holding, it's kind of got these Brainiac modules. It's green, but it's also green kryptonite. I think there's that vibe there that I definitely could see where the guys behind the animated series would maybe that spark an idea. Oh yeah, let's associate Brainiac with the destruction of Krypton. It's really solid. It's a really fun read. Seeing him learn about his origins. The Eradicator, of course, starts as this computer AI, and it eventually comes back. So let's see, when Superman dies, 75. So it comes back in about 50 issues. So it's about 4 years later, as the Eradicator version of Superman. So the guy with the big Terminator glasses that was like looked the most human but acted the most robotic of all those Superman replacements. But yeah, those two are fun issues, and that whole arc is really fun. Like I said, it's been collected in an omnibus called Superman either in Exile or Superman Exile, one of the two. Detective 601. Norm Brayful, right in the heart of his Detective Comics run. If you guys aren't a fan of Norm Brayful, I absolutely implore you to get on the train. He passed away a couple years ago, and way too young, and his talent is so outsized, and his Batman stuff is so seminal. They did put together a like DC Batman. It was either like a best of Brayful or just a straight compilation of his work. Can't recommend it anymore than I absolutely is a fun read. And even when we were in high school, we were fascinated by it, just the fluidity that he gave to Batman. And he made, before McFarlane was doing it, frankly, with Spawn and his cape, and I guess McFarlane had drawn a couple issues of Batman at this point, but Brayful had been doing that to Batman's cape before McFarlane really took off with that cape. Brayful's capes were alive, and they were sinister too. So I don't know if you're a fan of Batman or if you're a fan of Norm Brayful's, but do me a favor, Google him and check his work out, because it's really, 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 really great. Let's see. Oh, Hawk and Dove, Volume 3, Number 1. So this is this regular series after the Rob Liefeld miniseries. Speaking of Liefeld, are we ever going to get issue 5 of Dead Game? Because I'm dying to review it. I just can't wait to see what happens. And the longer it takes, the more I have to remember the details of the first interminable 4 issues. So when are we getting Snake Eyes Dead Game 5? Will it be before the movie? Will it be the week of the movie? You would think that they'd want to have the trade out in time for the movie. So that literally gives them like 2 weeks to get the book out. You would think that someone involved would want this to happen. I'm just throwing that out there. Just throwing that as a, I don't know, sales gimmick. Have a book called Snake Eyes on the stand the week of Snake Eyes. And maybe they're going with issue 5 landing on the stands the same week. But boy, wouldn't it be better if you had a $25 trade or $20 trade or however many dollars it is? Wouldn't that be a better thing? I just agree. Superman number 32, Superman versus Mongol. Mongol, the poor man's dark side, or poor man's Thanos, and Thanos being the poor man's dark side. All created by, not all, but not well, Thanos and Mongol. I think, didn't Jim Starlin have something to do with Mongol being created? I feel like he did. But yeah, Mongol, the big yellow guy who runs War World. Superman gets caught as a gladiator. They think exactly what happened to Thor in Ragnarok. That's what happens to Superman here in issue 32. And then Young All-Stars finally comes to an end. Issue 26, the final issue of Young All-Stars, and that would be kind of the end cap to Roy Thomas's World War II adventures in the DC universe. There may have been a limited series here and there that he revisited at, but this is like the capstone to, Young All-Stars, Infinity Inc., and before that, All-Star Squadron. So that goes like 100. Infinity Inc. had like 60. It's probably like 175 issues worth of World War II goodness from Roy Thomas. That's, that's a good 15 years of stuff, right? 12 issues a year, something like that. Yeah. So, and certainly some of it overlapped. So Roy Thomas did a ton of heavy lifting for DC World War II heroes post World War II. So if there's anything about that you'd like, so much of it has seeds from Roy Thomas's stuff that I think it's always worth checking out. So all right, so let's go over to Marvel Comics.
You were saying?
Let's see here. So we've got there's a bunch of goodness. So we've got Transformers UK. So the Transformers crossing over with Action Force. What? Issues 222 and 223 had Action Force crossovers. Any of you listeners out there got these issues? I certainly do not. Those are exciting. They're going to be on my radar now. I'm guessing it's Simon Furman written Transformers. Let's see here. Let me click on that and find out. I think Simon Furman did all that. Didn't he? Hold on. What am I clicking on here? Yes, he did. Not a surprise. Yeah, Simon Furman wrote on it. And he took over, he takes over for, again, I always forget this. It's Bob Budiansky, I think, who was writing the American Transformers stuff. So he takes over and really builds some really cool continuity for like the last, I'm going to guess and get this totally wrong, like 30 or 40 issues of Transformers. And he came over from the UK stuff. So that's pretty cool. All right here. Oh, Amazing Spider-Man 316. This is, I believe the second not appearance of Venom, because, he appeared in multiple issues before, but like the second adventure with Venom. The second, hey, now it's Venom's back and we got to get into it. This book's been tearing up the charts. It's got a great cover. It's Venom in McFarlane drawing it, of course. Venom crouched over Spider-Man, just really digging him into the ground. It's really cool. Also, speaking about being back in black, Captain America 354. And this is the return of John Walker, who had been ousted as Captain America. He then, I can't remember if they explained it in the comic. It's been quite a few years since I've read it. But he takes over the mantle. So Captain America, Steve Rogers, had been running around as the Patriot for like a year and a half maybe, while John Walker was Captain America. Very much like what they did in the Falcon and Winter Soldier thing. Which, again, I got to ask, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Steve Rogers is alive. Why didn't anyone ask him what he thought? Okay, so Captain America 354, back to that. So once Steve Rogers reclaimed that mantle, I believe it was in 350 when the two of them were going toe-to-toe on the cover, John Walker disappeared and was given, was asked, to, hey, you should come back and be the U.S. agent. And this is him coming back, and he's wearing the Patriot costume because it's a good-looking costume, which sparks a little debate we had on Facebook today. But it's a good-looking costume. It's very little blue. It's mostly black, but they use the blue highlight, so it gives you that feel of blue. But I think in real life it would have just been black with red and white. It's a great-looking costume, and what I can't remember is if someone gave it to him or if he just was like, let's just steal Cap's look because it was a good look and we all liked it. And is it the same costume Cap was wearing, like sweat stains and all? I don't remember, but it'd be good to reread and check it out. So that brought us to the Facebook comment questioning we were talking about today. I am convinced that Captain America's real costume, like the real traditional one, and I'm talking with or without the loose cowl piece, square shield or triangle shield or round shield. Like I'm agnostic on that part. I'm talking about your basic blocking and tackling Captain America look is as good as you're ever going to make a American flag inspired outfit. And it's perfect for what it does. And when you tinker with it, I have yet to see anyone do it well. I will say outside of this, but it actually is not really red, white, and blue because it's black. And I would say this is more like of a stealth version of that costume, if you wanted to call it something. His Secret Avengers look, which is really just blue and white. That's really just a different outfit. That's not really a Cap outfit. You're never going to get better than Captain America's traditional outfit. And this was brought up because there's a lot of Captain America 80th anniversary covers that are coming out from Marvel. And while they're illustrated lovely, I don't mean this in a knock on illustrators or designers. I'm saying there's something about that design that is so garish that you can't go too far with it, because as soon as you put it in the hands of almost any modern designer, it goes too far and it looks terrible. And even older designers, I'm talking about stuff like the Shield from Archie Comics, Captain Victory? Was that the Jack Kirby one? What was the guy that Rob Liefeld did a reboot of? Look at all of the US flag inspired heroes. Their costumes are terrible, but Cap's looks really good. There's something about it that just looks and works so well. It's simple, but it's complicated. And to a design, when I've seen them kind of update it for the quote unquote like modern times, it's too much. There's too many buckles. There's too many jigs and jags when it should have zigged and zagged. They try to futz with the red and white stripes on the belly. They make the helmet too much of a helmet, like when Hitch did the helmet in Ultimates, it worked because it was different. And it was like, oh, we really haven't seen Cap like this. But then so many people in the regular Avengers continuity started drawing it with like a full chin strap, like it mirrors a little bit the movie, and it's just on the page is just too much. And I'm reminded of what Eisner said when you put that level of detail sometimes on things, you slow it down. You just put it in the moment, and maybe that's why I like less detail on my Cap, because it just keeps him in motion. So I don't know. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that. It sort of ties in with G.I. Joe being, patriotic and all that stuff. I've yet to see a flag-based redesign, like a flag style superhero that's better than Cap. It just doesn't exist. And I'm even talking about the Falcap, like the Falcon Captain America version. It's good, but it's not great. Like, I don't love it. I think it's way too busy. There's so much going on with it. So I don't know. I don't know if you guys agree, disagree. Whatever. But it's interesting. It came up, and I think this fits with Cap 354 that's on the stands. Let's see, what else do we got here? Oh, Punisher: Return to Big Nothing. This is a nice oversized graphic novel. Mike Zeck, Stephen Grant probably wrote it, I want to say. Editor is Archie Goodwin. Yeah, Stephen Grant did write it. And I believe this was the Big Nothing was referencing. I did read it recently, actually. I never read it when I was a kid. Referencing one of the locations he was stationed at in Vietnam, and so it was like he was returning to his roots, and that was one of the first times they did that. They always said he was a Vietnam vet, but this was them going back to where he was really born. Iron Man 243. It's the ramifications of Bethany Cable shooting Tony Stark in the spine, and they would keep him paralyzed for like 40 issues until he eventually fakes his death and all that stuff, and he was mentally controlling the Iron Man armor and stuff. This was because they needed another gag besides his heart giving out. They needed another way to kind of hurt his body, Marvel Comics Presents 21. It's covered by Walter Simonson. You know me and Walter Simonson. He can't go wrong. I love this cover. This was one of the issues. So this era was when I was drawing, man. This was when I was aping. So I had a hand drawn version of this on my wall too, and anything with Simonson on it, I wanted to draw just like it. So yeah, this Marvel Comics Presents 21 is really great. That X Factor costume that he's all those costumes, they're so perfect. And it's funny on this page I'm looking at, because Marvel Comics Presents was a weekly book, right? So, or a bi-weekly book rather. So I'm looking at issues 21 and 22 right next to each other, and I think 22 looks like it might be Jackson Geist. Who is that? Oh, no. Oh, it's Marshall Rogers of G.I. Joe fame, who we're talking about today. Hey now. So Marshall Rogers drew it, and there's something about the way... Look at these two covers, and you'll see what I mean when I say same costume, different artists, different design sensibilities, and it works. I think it works so much better with Simonson, and not to knock Marshall Rogers, because he does it more, kind of deals with it more realistically. But there's something where Simonson lets the X on the chest form the man, and Rogers was drawing the man and then putting the X on it, if that. And I'm reading into how he did it, of course. I don't know if he did that for sure, but like there's when Simonson did these costumes, and it's not just Rogers though. I've seen a lot of other artists do it this way too. They take, okay, that's the design of the costume. We'll draw the character and we'll work the costume around it. Well, the reason my appreciation of those costumes was that you would see that X kind of define the shape of the body, that the action that they were in. It was kind of like X forward. And it always worked well in composition with the page. Again, my 2 cents on two freaking masters, so ignore it if you will, but I really love them. I love that costume. I love both artists, but I love that costume. I think that Simonson design is just dope. So much so that whenever they keep bringing back the blue and the yellow for Cyclops, and I'm like, just keep going back to this one, even if it's blue or yellow or blue or white. That costume is perfect, man. It says everything. And finally, we'll end it with Wolverine number 8. This was another comic that I absolutely drew and hung on my wall. This is one of the greatest covers of all time. It says everything without saying nothing. There's no word balloons on it. There's only the title Wolverine. It's Wolverine and the Hulk hanging out. They're both wearing the same white tuxedo. Wolverine's leaning on the Hulk. They're staring at each other. It says everything. It's great. My mother loved this cover. She saw it. I distinctly remember her seeing me reading this and was like, that's a great cover. It is so wonderful. It has shot up the back issue charts. People collect this just for that cover because it's just freaking brilliant.
You were saying?
All right. And now we're going to go to the movies. In February of 89, had a lot. So on the 3rd, they re-released Gone with the Wind into the movie theaters. And they released it up against the hot competition of John Candy, rest in peace. We miss him horribly. Who's Harry Crumb? And a movie called Wicked it's a Larry Cohen movie with Wicked Stepmother. I need to see that. Larry Cohen movies are crazy. The one about the flying monster that lives in the Empire State Building. On February 5th, I did not know this, they released Lonesome Dove into the movie theaters. This was a CBS miniseries that really everybody and their brother loved. There's a ton of really great people in it. Robert Duvall, Tommy Lee Jones, Danny Glover, Diane Lane. I mean, it's movie star level quality. I did not realize they released it in the theaters. That's great. On February 10th, a follow-up to the Cronenberg movie, The Fly. It's The Fly 2. This time, Eric Stoltz is the son of Jeff Goldblum. And it's a grosser, well, I don't know if you can say it's a grosser movie, but it's a more traditional like sci-fi horror movie, I think, than the other. The other one was more like body horror and the exploration of man. This is more action, exciting adventures of Eric Stoltz and Daphne Zuniga. It's not terrible. It's just, it is definitely like a different vibe than its predecessor. On February 15th, here's another re-release. They re-released Lawrence of Arabia. The wonderful David Lean movie. If you've never seen that, do it. They did a I don't want to get the specs wrong, but like let's just say a 4K release. They did a super high def release of it recently, and apparently it was amazing. But that went up against, on the 17th, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the very first Bill and Ted's movie, which I absolutely adore and love to all time. One of the most fun adventures in the theater. Who's the only real antagonist in there literally is time, and they have a time machine. It's great. Here's a quick note. Written by Chris Matheson, who's the son of Richard Matheson, who wrote all those great Twilight Zones, who wrote I Am Legend, who wrote just all that wonderful sci-fi stuff. So there you go. Also, The Burbs that day. That's a B classic too, directed by Joe Dante with Tom Hanks and stuff. And the world was introduced to Denzel Washington. I don't think this was his very first movie, but I think this was like his first big star in The Mighty Quinn. And on February 24th, Toxic Avenger Part 2 from Troma. Going toe to toe with American Ninja 3 Blood Hunt. Wow. So American Ninja 3 and Toxic Avenger battling it out for your B level money. So that's it for
You Were Saying.
And now
Mass is ready.
It's so true, Destro. And here we go. G.I. Joe number 87. Destro on the cover. Looking great. Now, this is a cover by Marshall Rogers. He is not doing the pencils on the inside. But again, listeners, I lead you to the cover and say, tell me someone's not drawing Destro to look exactly like an action figure come to life. This is wonderful stuff. It absolutely looks like your toy coming to life and flying on this cover. It's great. It's got a nice purple backdrop. What do we got here? Destro flying his despoiler, where he's flanked by a bunch of the AGPs, which would be the anti-gravity pods. I personally did not. I know I've talked about this before. I was not on the Iron Grenadiers train. I was just getting out of G.I. Joe at the time, and so the Iron Grenadier toys escaped me a little bit. And retroactively, I love the idea of Destro having his own little mini army. But at the time, it escaped my collector's bubble. So to see this stuff in action, I'm really, really digging it. So let's get on with it.
Yo, Joe!
Assault on Castle Destro. And I'm assuming this is Castle Destro. This is not the Silent Castle, which was also owned by Destro. And I think, actually, from the Pablo Hidalgo book, I believe he covered a lot of this, where there's like ownership disputes over who owns the Silent Castle. But this is Castle Destro, somewhere in Scotland, written, script by Larry Hama. Tony Salmons is back. Tony Salmons is back on pencils. Randy Emberlin on inks. Rick Parker lettering. Bob Sharon coloring. Bobby Chase editor. DeFalco editor-in-chief. And Tony Salmons does a great job with this book. I think of Tony Salmons. I know I've described it previously. It's kind of like a mix between Kirby and Ditko. He's got some of the quirkiness of Ditko, and then he's got some of the bold posings of Kirby. That's kind of how I feel about Tony Salmons stuff. I dig it. I really like it. I can't remember the last time we did it. I think maybe it was that Special Missions issue. Did he maybe draw that one? But I like it. I really do. He does a really great job with backgrounds. Keeps it very grounded, which you guys know. I think G.I. Joe needs to have that like level of realism to it to really, I think, just land as a story, because you have these fantastic elements. I do think you need it grounded in a drawn reality. And before we start with Destro and the spoiler and a bunch of AGPs zooming over some RVs, let's check out the Campbell's Can Do puzzle page. More fun for all kinds of Campbell's kids. What kind of Campbell kid are you? Are you a smart Campbell's kid who reads the ingredients and then turns to his mom and says, "Mom, this is not good soup"? Are you a playful Campbell kid who takes one drink of the soup and spits it out and laughs at your mother for serving you gruel? Are you a helpful Campbell kid who, when given the soup, you just throw it right in the garbage so that you don't grow up to be a monster? Are you a curious Campbell's kid? So when your mother says, "What can we make with this?" you say, "I don't know, let's look." And then when your mom turns her back to look, you throw it away. Are you a careful Campbell's kid? So you carefully study this can of Campbell's soup and you point out all the terrible, terrible salt and ingredients and all the crap that's in it? Or are you a happy Campbell's kid who eats homemade soup made with natural ingredients, and won't survive a nuclear war? So you figure it out. So Destro and the Baroness, they're flying overhead, and what's happened is next to Castle Destro, an RV park has shot up. This is great. Destro's neighbor has opened up a caravan, a trailer park on the neighbor's estate. And the neighbor, it's a great name, Lord Malaprop, which is awesome. And Destro says, I'm afraid the frozen haggis business has not weathered the economic downturn, the economic slump, as well as the arms trade.
Yo, Joe!
So they're flying overhead, and it's a nice overhead shot that gives us an idea of what we're talking about here. So it's real subtle, but there seem to be like power lines or whatever that seem to be demarking Destro's land. And right on the other side, it's just row after row after row of RVs. And then Destro notices there's a convoy of trucks. And this is a little, I am surprised Destro doesn't twig onto this. It's Braco Brothers, Braco Brothers Circus. Now, we know that's Cobra. Cobra, Barco, Braco, Arbco, Broca, which is just an amazing and awesome trick of these books that they always do that. So it's great. I'm kind of disappointed that Destro didn't notice that, but it's a circus. It's like a traveling, in their words, gypsy circus. I know that word is being frowned upon these days. But they're camping in the woods. And he says every mountebank and pickpocket in Britain is flocking to this area. Basically, it's there goes the neighborhood for Destro.
Yo, Joe!
The security of Castle Destro is seriously threatened as they land in the courtyard, and the Baroness is getting out of her AGP, and he talks to Voltar. Is this Voltar's first appearance? I feel like we haven't seen Voltar before. Did we? Is my brain misfiring? I feel like we may not have seen Voltar before. But then again, I also think we've talked about Voltar. So I can't remember. But Voltar's there. And he's carrying out Destro's business. And what he says is they hid a bunch of demon squadrons. That's the demon is that 4-track or 2-track or however many tracks tank that Destro has. So they've hid them all over the countryside, and that's what you need to know for this.
Yo, Joe!
Meanwhile, we see, I love this introduction because if you, it's Sneak Peek's telescope, and if you knew the toys, well, I mean it's one panel, but if you knew the toys, you knew that toy. Like that was such a crazy big accessory. So there's just a close up of that. So all you need to see is that panel, and you go, oh, sweet, Sneak Peek's in the mix. And it's Sneak Peek and Flint, and they're camped outside of the castle, spying on all the goings-on that's happening. So if you guys have been paying attention in the last few, since the Cobra Civil War, really, last year's worth of issues, Destro, he pulled up to the island just to rescue the Baroness, and he kind of played spoiler to the whole thing, like, as a force member. He didn't even shoot a weapon, not a single bullet was fired. And then he had Iron Grenadiers pose as Cobra agents. And then last issue, Cobra agents pose as Iron Grenadiers to frame Destro. So there's a lot of like back and forth sniping between Cobra and Destro that's been happening. It's not behind the scenes because it's the point of it, but it's not really been driven home. And I've really enjoyed that because it's just happening, because this is G.I. Joe, right? So they're seeing the after effects of it. It's not like following it's not the on the nose adventures of Cobra getting revenge on Destro or vice versa. These are just things that have been happening quietly in every issue. It's been lobbying back and forth, and this time it seems that Cobra is going back at Destro this time, like kind of hitting him at home where he lives. So Flint and Sneak Peek, they notice that there's these haystacks, and he says you don't stack hay in the spring, so we can put that together. Those haystacks are probably guarding those demons, and the Joes themselves are undercover amidst all these campers. So they're kind of on their own hill, hiding out as well. So you got the Cobras hiding in plain sight, the G.I. Joe's just hiding, and Destro at his castle.
Yo, Joe!
Meanwhile, at the Gypsy encampment, these gypsies are great, and these gypsies are drawn. If you look at them, they're drawn. These are like Tony Salmon's. This is like Tony Salmon's doing his artwork, like his more like a cartoony version, right? He's not trying to stay on model. He's just drawn these real cartoony looking dudes. Somebody get Earl Bob. Like they're great. Like they're awesome. And then you can see the difference when he draws Shockwave, the same page and everything. Shockwave looks like Shockwave. But these dudes who are just randomly tossing cans of Cobra Cola around, they're drawn like cartoon characters, you know, like he's not given a model to stay on model with. And I appreciate that. And Shockwave and Outback, they're doing their own reconnoitering, and they realize that these guys are drinking Cobra Cola, so they're not what they seem.
Yo, Joe!
Later, inside Castle Destro, the Baroness is in a development room, the red light. What do you got? The room development. What do you? I never took film. What do you call that? You know, the exposure room. I mean, she's developing photos, which is funny because you don't see these scenes a lot anymore. And she's developing photos that she took while she was flying around earlier. And they see that on one of those caravan campers, there's just a really big satellite array on top. And so that confirms for them that they are more than what they seem. So it's page after page of everyone kind of twigging on to stuff going on. So it's pretty standard there. I like the use of the red light, you know, giving everything a nice red tinge. And once you've got, so the second panel where there's the yellow, like the regular light, the exposure light. I wish I knew more about developing photos, but I don't. It's illuminating Destro, and it's almost as if when you're in the red, you're in the know, and so Destro's getting in the know here, and then in the final panel, he's in the full pink red, you know, look. So it's like now he's on board with it. So it's subtle. I don't even know if that's intended, although easily might have been, but it works really well because that panel is Destro learning what the Baroness already knows, and then you get the final panel, and now it's Destro's on the same mental playing field as Baroness. He knows what's going on, and so now he's colored the same color. It's very, very subtle, and like I don't know if that was intended or if it was just, hey, there's a light, let's color it different. But I think it works really, really well.
Yo, Joe!
So on the carnival ground, we've got a Michael Jackson video ready to break out. Some guy yelling, "Beat it," but that's not true. It's the guy from the Barco Circus is yelling at some kids named Robbie, and they don't get the other kid's name, but they're snooping around on their bikes, and they get yelled at by this carny trash to get away from this carnival. And who tells kids to get away from a carnival? Somebody up to no good. That's who.
Yo, Joe!
Ooh, American Comics. They've got some books to sell you, but boy, was this this ad didn't turn out well for them. They need something. It's like I guess it works okay enough, but it's just a little sparse. This is American Comics out of Gainesville, Georgia. Anyone here ever shop there? I wonder if they're still around. They've got newer stuff here. They've got newer stuff, most of it. Ooh, they've got models and hats and buttons and t-shirts. That's cool. So this is more than just comics. Oh, this is cool. They're also selling computer games. So you can get the Dungeons & Dragons computer games. Oh, that's timely. There's a Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance game just dropped. I hear it's buggy, but it might be fun. I might check that out. Star Trek Promo Prophecy for the Commodore 64, only $32.95. Or you can get it for the IBM for $39.95. So IBM games were roughly $5 to $10 more. Look at that. Bard Tales 1 through 3 for the 64 you get for $45. Get it on IBM or Apple for $55. Ooh, doggy. Yeah, they got BattleTech games. Oh, I got to go to American Comics. So at the Caravan Park, This is a page that made me think Kirby when I was thinking about Tony Salmon's. It's a fun page. It's got a big like half size splash in the middle, and it's Cobra. It's Fred Mander, Cobra Fred Mander. He's looking over a map, like a 3D map where they've got all the pieces in place of where their carnival is set up, and then where some of their other assets are set up in Castle Destro. And they get a report that the gypsy camp there says they're ready. And now these last two panels, this is where I get that Kirby vibe. Look at that hand. He's like, I'll teach Destro not to cut into Cobra's arms business. And that hand just feels so Kirby, like especially the Superpowers era Kirby. And then that face was shaking it in that final panel. That close up, I just get that vibe and I love it. And kudos to Fred Mander. Like, he's eating up this role. He knows he's exposed. He can doing it. He is chewing the scenery here as Cobra Commander, because he's Mindbender's on the know now, right?
Yo, Joe!
Oh, we've got more. Oh, this is great. Yeah, so here's American Comics. Now here are the real comic books. The other page was just accoutrement. This is the real comic book page, and it is newer stuff. It's not exactly Silver Age Classics. It's a lot of new stuff here. Yeah, absolutely. You can get yourself a Secret Wars #8 first black costume, $1.50. What? $1.50. That's a steal. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the 5th print though. 5th print, you can get a #1 for $2.50. So even then, you couldn't get your hands on a first print of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Wow. So at the carnival. Now, a bunch of maggots, Cobra maggots, are rolling out, and they got a bunch of Vipers at the helm. So they're moving out, and they're moving to their firing points, and it's just the action's just going. And that's what I like about this. There's a few pages of setup, and then it just gets to it. There's no more real trickery other than that. Well, there's a little bit that comes in from Destro's side, and the Joes are like, and it is just these 4 Joes. It's just Flint, Sneak Peek, Outback, and Shockwave. And they're just they're a narrator, they're just sitting on the side going, oh, you won't believe what just happened. A whole bunch of Cobra maggots just rolled out.
Yo, Joe!
And the Joes are so well disguised that the maggots literally drive over their hiding spot, and the maggots never notice that the Cobras or that the Joes are right below them. So much that the cannon fire, the shells are actually hitting the Joes, and the noise is deafening the Joes, but no one notices that the Joes are there, which is great.
Yo, Joe!
Destro in the castle, we get a nice establishing shot of what we're looking at, where in the castle they are. Then a little medium close up to show that, Destro is in the know, that he knows what's happening, and the firefights it's just begun. Like, they just get into it. And what's great is they don't spend a lot of time of like, why would he be fighting? If you've been reading the book, you get it. If you haven't, you don't. Like, you just, that these guys are backstabbers. And really, Cobra Commander laid it out that, he says, I'll teach him not to cut into Cobra's armament business. That's it. That's all you need to know here. Iron Grenadiers are shooting mortars. They've got the range of the maggots. G.I. Joes are kind of caught in the middle, and even though no one's really shooting at them.
Yo, Joe!
Now this nice undershot close-up of Fred Mander in the mask. That's a good look on that mask. This bring on the gypsies. It's a quote in the book. It's a little crazy. And we see that Tomax and Zaymot have been hiding out with that group this whole time. And we've got a bunch of fangs and a bunch of jetpacks that have been hiding in like the fake trailers there. So all those trailers open up, and we get an aerial assault now from Cobra coming from the other direction. And this is that purple jetpack that Cobra had at the time. I had that. What was that called? That was from 87. Yeah, it was just called the Cobra jetpack. The follow up to the white one. This one, it was really big. It was like 2 jet engines, but it had a lot of missiles on it. The only I wish it had bigger wings, but I get it because it was still pretty compact. It was a sturdy toy. I liked it. It was just a sturdy toy. So those are up in the air, and Tomax and Zaymot are out after him.
Yo, Joe!
And now for phase 3, Fred Manor calls it "Let Loose the Holiday Makers," and it's a bunch of vamps, or Cobra. What do you call that? Cobra. Vamp was what was the Cobra Stinger? There's a bunch of stingers, and the Cobra Imp. I had to look that up. I wasn't familiar with the Cobra Imp. I never had that. Well, let's look at this Cobra Imp. So it's like a tracked vehicle. It looks like it's ready to blow through barricades. Got a bunch of missiles on it. That's kind of neat. I like that it's just small. It looks like it could fit in your hand. That's kind of cool. So it's a bunch of imps and stingers. So I don't know why he calls it Holiday Makers. Maybe it's just because they bring the presents. I don't know. But he's riding high on this one. Just like in the last episode where they were like, we're going to get those computer plans. We're doing it. We're doing it.
Yo, Joe!
But are they going to? We'll find out. So the Fangs are providing cover as a bunch of CGs rappel into Destro's castle, because the drawbridge is still up and everything. And they're trying to knock the drawbridge down. Tomax and Zaymot set a few charges because they want to get those. They want to get those imps and stingers inside so they can just take the castle and own it.
Yo, Joe!
More outside action, really nicely drawn, easy to follow action. We get some good shots of all the toys in play. That's cool. That's important. Nice wide shot of the castle, kind of a panoramic shot. And we get a nice close-up of Tomax and Zaymot. And they're doing what I love them to do. When you have Tomax and Zaymot, absolutely have them finish each other's sentence. If they're not finishing each other's sentence, why are they even there? Shall we do it by all? And they go together. Means. That's awesome. So this brings up an awkward question. What came first, the chicken or the egg? When was it shown that they finish each other's sentences? And I think it was on their file cards that maybe they do. And they certainly did it on the show. But when I read this here, this reads exactly like the Sunbow show. And yet, we know he's on record saying he never watched the Sunbow show. So is this just, I don't know. It just reads like someone who's seen the Sunbow show and goes, oh yeah, that's the way to write those two because it's perfect. Or is that just universally, that's how you write someone finishing each other's sentence? I don't know. Just throwing that out there as a question.
Yo, Joe!
If you're this far into this long of an episode, I'm assuming you're here for the deep, deep philosophical G.I. Joe questions such as, hey, has Larry Hama really never seen an episode of Sunbow? Really? So, we get to the Castle Destro being breached. The drawbridge gets blown down. And Destro realizes it's time for him to make his play. And just when Cobra's excited and they're starting to bring those imps in,
Yo, Joe!
the nullifiers take to the air. And they start fighting back. But they're going right past the Crimson Guards. It's like as if they're retreating. But they're going straight to the caravan, which the CGs are figuring out. And the CGs realize they have to turn around because...
Yo, Joe!
As they turn around, that's when those haystacks come into play. And the demons all come rolling out of the haystacks. And they start hitting Cobra from behind, cutting off Cobra's ability to retreat and protect their leaders at the caravan. Remember, that's at the caravan is where the Cobra leaders are. So Destro basically drew them in. And right when they thought they were making their power play, he looped around on them, and he went for their leaders, which are back at the caravan, and then cut off their ability to escape / help the leaders. So they're stuck between Destro's castle and all these demons. And it says here that they're between us and the caravan park. Cobra Commander won't stand a chance. It's exactly what they did here. It's great. Nice illustrations. There's a lot of energy in these. You get like the demons. Some of them are like a couple feet off the ground, like they're moving. They're lurched. They're flying forward. The tracks are at different levels. So as if they're working the terrain. on jagged terrain. So like those little details help all this stuff pop artistically, and I think it's a really great job. And the explosions on this bottom panel here of the Stinger, and I think that's an imp too. Yeah, one Stinger and one imp exploding. Those are great. You definitely have to draw the requisite Cobra, the soldiers jumping out of it and getting tossed out on the top one. But just the level of destruction on these vehicles is great because you still see the vehicle with inside. It's not just a random explosion. It's that thing that we saw really well rendered earlier now in pieces and being torn apart by these missiles from the demons. It's really nice. I like this page. This page has really good action. The only thing I would throw down on here, actually, to be honest, is the angle on the camera, and take this grain of salt. I would take this last panel and I would mirror it. I would reverse it and I would make them facing the other direction, because then that mirrors the angles that we're getting in the top two. Because right now, with them facing the same direction as the demons are in the other panels, it really gives it's like the camera has like crossed that 180-degree plane. It gives the impression that it's the demons that are being blown up. If you flip this and just reversed it, even drew it the same way but just flipped it, it would move you to the next page, and it would also it would keep the continuity of the battle a little bit tighter.
Yo, Joe!
So now these maggots, which are maggots are like long range, right? They're not in that like mix, like in that upfront mix, because they as the maggot driver, as the worms says, they don't have the maneuverability, right? So they were just standing off at a distance, lobbing all these shots. And meanwhile, Flint, I like this. Flint and the guys are like, we got to go. It's time to hat up and book out, boys. Yeah, let's blow this pop stand. And as they go, these the mega drivers are like, huh? Like this whole time they've been sitting there, and the Joes have been just chilling in, let's see, what vehicle is this? This is is this a swamp? Yeah, it is. They're driving a swamp smasher, and they just take off. Like, how hilarious is that? You spend all this time dealing with this one threat, and then at the end of it, you look over, and this whole time the Joes have been hiding 5 feet away from you.
Yo, Joe!
We got a bullpen bulletins here. Profile on Mark McLaurin. And the quote of the month is, "It's good to be back on home turf, kicking the rear ends of a few average lowlifes," says Moon Knight in Moon Knight #1. So now Destro is zeroing in on that caravan. And this is the one from the picture with all the extra radar equipment. So they assume that that's their operating base, which they assume correctly. Because not only are they getting it shot at by Destro, but inside, Fred Mander has lost it and is choking the life out of Dr. Mindbender, saying, "This is all your fault." Mindbender says, "But it was your idea." And Fred Mander says, "Yeah, but you should have told me it wouldn't work."
Yo, Joe!
Which is just a great dynamic. I really like the dynamic between Fred and Mindbender. Like, it's been really good. That's a wonderful, that's a wonderful dynamic. That's very much the Starscream Megatron relationship, like, "You should have told me, Starscream, this wouldn't happen," like that kind of a relationship. I really like that. And so now Destro rolls up with some nullifiers, which that armor looks dope. Like, that's just mean looking armor. And he's got his guns drawn on them. And he says, you're coming with me. Now, this blaster, I love it. Absolutely looks like Han Solo's blaster. It's great. And Cobra Commander's playing stupid. He's like, "Well, I didn't know this was your castle." And that's when Destro decides to let him know, "I know exactly who you are, Fred. The Baroness told me," which, as Fred, you got to figure, you can't be surprised at that. You got to figure the Baroness gave you up at first opportunity.
Yo, Joe!
And they emerge. This is what I love about the way Hama writes these Cobra relations, and has since day one. The shifting loyalties. They come out of the trailer, literally arm over shoulder, saying, Destro saying, "And so we enter a new era of understanding and cooperation between Cobra and Mars, an era marked by bigger profits, higher dividends, and increased benefits." That means Destro's taking a big slice of Cobra. This is great. the Cobra soldiers are excited, both sides, the Grenadiers and the CGs. Yay, more benefits. And Flint says he thought Destro would have had more integrity than that. And we get a little next issue Python Patrol teaser. So Destro comes out on top, and the only losers here are G.I. Joe. And what's wonderful about this issue is, again, the G.I. Joe sat on the sidelines for it. They like us were just viewers to a bigger move, a bigger power play happening, all by Destro. So excellent. So now we go over to the post box of the pit. We've got a letter from Tyler Bacall Korn. We've got Cindy Velez Rivera from Statesboro, Georgia. J.J. Street from Elliott, M.E. Maine. Elliott, Maine, right? M.E. is Maine? Or is that Elliott, Maine? And we've got Tim Murphy out of High Ridge, Montana. And now, to continue the lone wolf controversy, Greg, quote, classified, quote, Fitch. He withheld his address at request, so I'm assuming he's still deep undercover to this day. But he's got 4 great questions, and he's asking for rumors about these. 1, Hasbro will be coming out with October Guard figures and vehicles. Now, I know they eventually did, but at the time they did not. And they should have. They should have done, absolutely should have done a Crimson Guard, October Guard set. That would have brought me back in. I love the October Guard. Number 2, Hasbro will be remaking the figures of Scarlet, Grand Slam, Rock and Roll, Flash, and Breaker. I don't think that happened either. I think it was a few more years until they did like full on character reissues. If I'm remembering correctly, we're talking about like the anniversary sets and like the mid, after they took that new figure hiatus. And I don't think like Ninja Scarlet counts. But maybe it did, because they did come out with the next version of Rock and Roll. Anyway, and number 3, there isn't actually one person who goes by the code name Lone Wolf. Rather, it's a bunch of people who can't be original enough to come up with a new code name. Shots fired on Lone Wolf, everybody. Shots fired on Lone Wolf. Number 4 is No One Beats Marvel, but Lone Wolf taking a shot. I guess that's what happens when you step out and claim you're the only person with no friends who shares his comic books with no friends, or with those friends, and it can also be called Lone Wolf. And then we finally get a question, or a letter from Jeremy Wilburn out of Alberta, California, and he talks about Snake Eye stuff, and then he's getting into some of the mystery of the Snake Eye stuff, and he's talking about specifically the blurred fellow on the end of the Onihashi's on the end of the photos. And he's saying what I always thought, that blurred fellow is Zartan. But, and again, I'm rereading these with you guys, so, as we come to some of the revelations, it's going to be, new to me, or not, refreshing to me. In Pablo Hidalgo's book, literally last night I was reading this, and I was reading the entry for Firefly, and I completely forgot that because Firefly can't just wear a mask, he has to somehow be a ninja, because he sort of looked like a ninja, even though he shouldn't have ever been a ninja. They said that he was the guy with the blurry face, which is so silly, because what? You got a guy named Zartan who changes his face. Why wouldn't Zartan be the guy with the blurry face? But in Pablo's book, at some point, apparently, I forgot about this, they make Firefly the guy with the blurry face in those photos. That doesn't seem to make sense to me. But you know what? We're not there yet in the comics. We'll deal with that outrage when we do. But that's it for G.I. Joe number 87. Thank you all so very much for listening. You guys are the best. And now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.